Welcome to Women Being Loved, a weekly podcast and upcoming book series to help you and other women 35 and beyond attract deep, passionate, lasting love while honoring your authentic self. I'm Tadra, your host. Hello, lovelies. So good to be back with you. Last week, I had a blast being a guest on the Menopause Matters podcast and talking about all things love, especially for women in midlife. If you have the time, check that out. There's a link in the show notes. Also, if you would like for me to speak on your podcast or at an event online or live, please reach out. Contact details are also in the show notes. I had mentioned last week doing a different episode for this week, featuring a friend who would be sharing some of the challenges she faced in dating as an autistic woman and some powerful lessons that we can all learn from her wisdom. But that episode will air next month. It required more research and editing than I had time for this week. I do apologize. But let's get into this episode because I think you will enjoy it. Are you blocking yourself from finding love? Anne Hathaway, who's one of my favorite actors, has a new romantic movie out called The Idea of You, and it's based on a best-selling book. I was watching the trailer on YouTube, which I ain't gonna lie, sealed the deal for me. I'm definitely going to see this movie. I'm not always a huge fan of rom-coms because I feel like modern ones kind of feel very formulaic, right? They're not as cool as When Harry Met Sally, which is the all-time best rom-com. Fight me. I dare you. But anyway, I fell into the black hole of comments after the trailer. And I noticed one woman's comment, and I can just imagine her typing away with a snarl on her face. And her comment was, "This option isn't available to most women my age as we don't look like Anne Hathaway." So this option that this woman is referring to is the opportunity to date much younger men. So in the film, Anne's character is 40, which Anne Hathaway is in real life, and she ends up having this sex-positive encounter and then a relationship with a 25-year-old pop star. So, it's a new twist on the rom-com. It's like, oh, look, women over 30 can have these fun adventures too. Now, the funny part about the woman in the comments was that she didn't challenge that it would be pretty hard to meet a pop star and have him fall in love with you. Like for me, that's the rom-com part. That's the, this doesn't quite ring true part. But no. Said woman argued that it's impossible for older women to attract younger men. As living proof, that is not true. My husband is 8 years younger than me. Granted, he is not 15 years younger like in the movie, but my point is it does happen. And it doesn't just happen to me. A woman I recently interviewed for the book met her husband when she was 40 and he was 25, exactly like the two characters in the movie. And in this woman's description of herself, she said, "I'm a bigger woman. I'm neurodiverse." And then she explained that she tried dating men her age. She tried dating men who were older, and they just didn't click. And she said mostly what she found, and this may not be everybody's experience, but she found that older men or even men her age were too rigid in what they wanted her to be, while younger men were more flexible about gender roles. So when she met her husband at a workshop, they immediately hit it off and started dating just a few days in. She didn't tell herself, well, I'm a bigger woman, or I'm neurodiverse, or I don't look like Anne Hathaway. So this developing love that's right in front of me can't possibly be real. To get to the climax of their story, these two are happily married now. Our mindsets. I know you are rolling your eyes at me right now because it's kind of a buzzword these days, but it still holds true. Our mindsets determine so much of what we allow into our lives and what we ultimately receive. Now, you may not like younger men. This episode is not trying to convince you to like younger men, to date younger men. That's not my point at all. My point is maybe, just maybe, you have certain assumptions about who's in your league and who isn't. And that can go both ways. Like you could be the person that's saying, that person is not my equal, or you're saying I'm not that person's equal. And I'm talking in the dating arena, not, life in general. You know what I'm talking about. There's this unspoken myth that everyone has to stay in their lanes in dating. So pretty people only date pretty people. Thin people only date thin people. Americans only date Americans, or whatever nonsense. One woman I recently interviewed, she told me she had a master's degree and an impressive job at a major Hollywood studio. If I said the studio name, you would totally be like, oh yeah, I know their films. They made this and that and the other thing. The man who loved her for years and was ready to commit to her did not have an advanced degree, and he was an actor, a struggling actor, not an A-list actor. And this woman asked one of her colleagues if she would be stigmatized for dating and possibly marrying this wonderful man because he wasn't as successful as she was. I loved her coworker's answer. Her coworker said, I think the only person who cares is you. I agree with her. I would venture to say, however, if you know in your heart that it really does matter to you, then don't continue down that path. But first, I have a question for you. What would happen if you opened up your idea of who you could see yourself with? Now, I should say, this is not a disguised way of saying lower your expectations. I'm actually saying expand your expectations. Let's talk about George Clooney for a moment. I know that feels random, but stay with me. This man was a serial model dater, and I am not hating on models. Some of my friends are models. You have to constantly say that kind of stuff on the internet because people assume anything you say is hating on someone. That is not what this is. But Mr. Clooney had a track record. And, the joke was that he was never going to marry again. Now, we're talking George Clooney, very successful, attractive. The media said, I don't know if he actually said this, that he was not going to get married again. But then Amal came along, and she was a woman so outside of what he expected, and she turned his world upside down. Let me say that again. She turned his world upside down. Yes, Amal is beautiful, and she's incredibly smart, but that's beside the point. She expanded what he thought was available, and he snatched her up pretty quickly. Maybe you're rolling your eyes because you're like, but I'm not Amal. Girl, neither am I. No matter who you are, you may think your dating pool is this big, when in reality, it's this big. And more importantly, the sweep you off your feet love you've been craving could be in that bigger pool. Oops. Oops. So why don't you stick your toe in and see what happens? Instead of going to the same places you always go, maybe try signing up for something you've never considered in the past. Be creative. Be adventurous. I've had women tell me they found the love that they wanted when they signed up for a rowing lesson or for rock climbing or cooking classes. Some of them volunteered to take provisions to the homeless with organizations that did that, or they worked on Habitat for Humanity. One of my friends, Monique, found her amazing fiance when she stopped insisting that he had to live in her zip code. The man of her dreams, who I might add recently proposed to her in Paris with a limited edition Tiffany diamond, which he had flown in from Singapore, was 4 miles outside of her original limits. This zip code dating is a big thing in LA because traffic is just so bad. Every woman I interviewed who lived in LA mentioned it in some way or another. But my friend, thankfully, challenged herself to expand. What is your comfort zone and how can you expand it? That's your homework for this week. I know I don't normally give homework, but this is a good thing to do. Go out and do something you've never done before and stay open. If you accept this challenge, I would love to hear about it. Seriously, I would. And if you meet somebody, girl, you better give me details. Send me an email at Todra, that's TODRA, at womenbeingloved.com and tell me what new thing you did and what happened and how you expanded yourself. Okay, that's it for this week. It's a shorter episode. I hope you had fun and you enjoyed it. And I really do hope you take me up on that challenge because even if you don't meet anyone, it can be a really, really awesome thing to do for yourself. All right. Love you guys. See you next week.